from the overseas development budget to invest in our other public services as well. It's a win-win with UKIP.
That's David Curtin from UKIP, and you heard also from Dominic Rowe, from Andy Slaughter, from Daisy Cooper, and from Sean Berry, and you heard also from many callers, to whom many thanks. Should say that we'll have another special election programme next week, which will look at the decisions facing voters in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, and Jane Garvey will be back with me for that. We've only got a little bit of that music, which is a shame. It's rather a jolly way to finish, isn't it? Making Your Mind Up with Peter Allen, brought to you by Wirefree Productions. It's time now for the 5 Live News with Rachel Bland.
On digital, online, smartphone and tablet, this is BBC 5 Live.
Officers investigating the Manchester Arena suicide bombing are carrying out 2 searches in the Rusholme and Gorton areas of the city this evening. Earlier, a man suspected of terror offences was arrested in the Old Trafford area. A murder investigation's begun in Northern Ireland after a man was shot in a busy Sainsbury's car park in Bangor. The 55-year-old man was treated at the scene but died later. British Airways passengers have suffered a second day of delays caused by a worldwide computer failure. Operations at Gatwick have returned to normal, but cancellations at Heathrow have continued. And Nicola Sturgeon has told the BBC the SNP would consider a progressive alliance with Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party in the event of a hung parliament. That's despite her having reservations about his leadership and policies. Sport now, here's Andrew Lindsay.
It was a Ferrari 1-2 at the Monaco Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel winning, Kimi Raikkonen second. Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo finished third with Lewis Hamilton seventh. The Mercedes man is 25 points behind Vettel in the Drivers' Championship.
I think it's irrelevant to look at the points before August. I don't think you need to be a genius to make out the maths that if you win, you score more points than others. That's the objective. But to be honest, the car is great to drive. I really enjoy it. The cars are much more fun this year than they were previous years. And I'm enjoying that, so I don't look ahead too much.
Hamilton Academical will stay in the Scottish Premiership after beating Dundee United 1-0 in the playoff final second leg. Blackpool are promoted to League One after beating Exeter 2-1 at Wembley. Now Dan Evans is out of the French Open, losing in 4 sets to Spain's Tommy Robredo.
Very hot inside that sort of bowl, and doing a lot of running as well, so it wasn't easy. Difficult. I never really struggled in the heat, but today on the clay it was taking a lot out of me each point, and yeah, I really did struggle.
Earlier, Angelique Kerber became the first women's top seed to lose in the tournament's first round, while Petra Kvitova won in her first match since a knife attack on her hand in December. England will rest Ben Stokes, Chris Woakes and Moeen Ali as injury precautions for tomorrow's third ODI against South Africa at Lord's, with Stephen Finn, Toby Rowland-Jones and Liam Dawson brought in. Here's Pat Murphy.
The only one of the 3 causing concern is Stokes, who will have a scan on his sore knee on Tuesday once the injury has calmed down. Moeen has a slight worry about his groin, Woakes his thigh, but none of the 3 will play at Lord's now that the series has been won and the Champions Trophy is just around the corner. The 3 coming into the Lord's squad won't be added to the Champions Trophy party unless Stokes' injury is more serious than expected. But Finn and Rowland-Jones are never far away these days from the selectors' thoughts, and Dawson made his one-day, T20 and Test debuts last year, so he's not exactly green around the gills.
In the rugby union friendly, England beat Barbarians 28-14. Sweden's Alex Noren won the PGA Championship by 2 shots and claimed a course record at Wentworth, a 10 under par 62.
I just try to try to go out with my caddy to have a good game plan and see what happens. And then I started birdie, par birdie, and all of a sudden, you get that feelings in your body and saying, well, this could, if I keep on like this, something good could happen, and it kept going.
Vicky Thornley took gold in the women's singles sculls, while Great Britain's rowers took 3 bronze medals on finals day at the European Championships. And the trainer Aidan O'Brien completed the Guineas double-double as Winter took flat racing's Irish 1,000 Guineas 3 weeks after winning the equivalent race at Newmarket. Yesterday, O'Brien's colt Churchill completed the same double in the 2,000 Guineas, both mounts ridden by Ryan Moore.
This is BBC 5 Live. on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
On the roads this evening, Manchester queuing on the M60 clockwise, which is closed because of a police incident between junction 19, Heaton Park, and 21, Hollinwood. The entry slip road also closed at junction 19. Very slow on the M25 clockwise in Essex. One lane shut after an accident between junctions 26 and 27. That's Waltham Abbey and the M11. M25 anti-clockwise in Surrey is slow because of an earlier breakdown 13 to 12 at Staines to the M3. And elsewhere in Surrey, one lane closed and very slow traffic while an earlier accident is recovered between junctions 3 and 2 of the M3. That's Lightwater and the M25.
BBC 5 Live.
Who do you want to represent you in this Brexit thing?
I'm at a loss here about who to vote for.
If you don't have an agenda as a politician, you shouldn't be a politician.
We need people in leadership that see the bigger picture.
Election 2017 on the BBC.
Let me bring Rose in Worcester. Who's standing for you?
Radio 5 Live.
Tonight on 5 Live, we're showcasing some of the podcasts that are available from the 5 Live website. Coming up in an hour's time, Adrian Chiles revisits some momentous moments in history with people who can say, I was there. But first, we join Freddie, Robbie and Matthew for some of the best bits from their podcast, Flintoff Savage and the Ping Pong Guy. This programme is pre-recorded, so please don't phone or text.
3, that's a magic number. Yes, it is. It's the magic number.
What does it all mean?
Hello and welcome to Flintoff Savage and the Ping Pong Guy. That's me, Matthew Syed. This week we've got something a little different. We've been blown away by all the tweets using the hashtag FredSavSide. We've collected the very best topics. So let's get straight into it. And this is one that Freddie has chosen, and we've had this tweeted by a number of different people. If you could revisit one moment in your career and change it, what would it be? What was that sliding doors moment? Freddie.
Well, yeah, because I look back at my career and I'll be honest with you. Do you know when people say, you do an interview and someone will say to you, what do you regret? And I always say, nothing. Nothing. Yeah. Because... do you know when you're in the situation, your pressure of where you are, your state of mind dictates that decision you make. So I'm not sure at the time you have a choice. So it's no good regretting it, but this is slightly different. What I'm saying is, if you could choose one moment of your football career, Robbie, if you could look back with the benefit of hindsight, to say, you know what, in the cold light of day now, if I could put Robbie Savage in there now, what would I have done different? And what situation would you put yourself in? And Robbie, only one. Only one. So, we don't want your greatest hits. We don't want 20 or 30, just one.
So mine would be, we spoke about it quite a lot, the class of 92. Mm-hmm. So I was a centre forward. I was weak. I was physically small. I wasn't quick. I couldn't score. I used to close the corner flag down. I was a headless chicken.
So do you think you was in the right game?
But these things were told about me. I was a centre forward, and in that class of 92, you had great midfielders who turned out to be the best. Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt, David Beckham, Keith Gillespie. These players who are now legends, yeah? Especially Scholes and Beckham. So, Fred, going back, I wished, and would it have turned out differently if I had been a midfield player? So I was a centre forward. You know, I could pass. You know, I could see a pass, a footballing brain, they call it. I could run all day, up and down, all day long. I was aggressive.
Yep.
So if I'd have been placed in the middle of the park, would my career have turned out differently? It wasn't until Bobby Gould spotted me playing for Wales under 21s. I was centre forward. I continued that. Went to Crewe from Man U, played as centre forward. Dario Gradi.
Can I just ask a question? Do you know you said centre forward? Who decides what position you turn up and you go, all these kids can play football? I played centre half as a kid because I wasn't particularly skillful. I didn't understand the game, but I could boot it and I could get my head on it. But who says Robbie Savage you're a centre forward?
You know when you take your ball to school, when you're like in the junior school, and the teacher says, right, Who wants to play where today? Who wants to score the goals? You all put your hand up.
Yeah.
You all want to score the goals.
It falls into place now. You're a glory hunter. Glory hunter.
You all want to score the goals. And the level I played at in the junior football, I scored 72 goals in 10 games.
But is that where, as a kid, the best player plays up front because he scores a load of goals? You was the best player, correct. So you got sent up front.
Got 70 in 2 games.
Yeah. No, 72 in 10. 72 in 10.
Sorry.
Average 7 goals a game. So I think the best player...
7.2.
I think the best player plays up front. And I think that continued... but then...
Was he off injured for a while, the best player? He put you up front.
So then, Fred, I would go to Man U. I was spotted as a centre-forward. But looking back now, the way my career turned out when I was a wholehearted, great energy, influenced games as a midfield player, I just think now, if I'd have been put... And some of the best coaches who've been involved in football, Eric Harrison, Sir Alex Ferguson... Dario Gradi. Mm-hmm. It was Bobby Gould who actually spotted me, played up front against Germany. He dropped me back in the middle of the park and I was sensational. And I don't mind saying that, I was. So in my head, I'm thinking, do you know what? I just believe, Fred, one place, one time, if I'd have been 16, 17 and somebody would have seen earlier, do you know what?
Do you know?
He's a set midfielder. My career might have been different.
And it may have been because... Think about what that group, that cohort that you mentioned, the class of 92 went on to achieve. Lots of Premier League titles, the treble, 98, 99. And Nicky Butt, who was in the class of 92, good player. I don't think he was a better player than you were.
But you look back, and to be honest...
Well, actually, he was a bit. I'm just looking into the gallery, and they're going, what? Nicky?
Matthew's at it again. He's nasty these days.
I think that's a fair point. You think, Matthew, I went to Crewe and played with Danny Murphy, Gareth Wally, and I'm just thinking, if I'd have grown up with Nicky Butt, Beckham in the middle of the park and then played with better players, maybe, because Nicky Butt, when I played against Nicky Butt, I'm not sure he got the better of me that often. You remember, he was playing alongside Roy Keane and these great players. So I wish, Fred, I would have been given the opportunity, or somebody of the great knowledge would have spotted me and said, do you know what? He doesn't score that many goals. He's not quick.
But he was a centre-forward.
He's not strong.
I thought he was a centre-forward.
Let's try him in the middle of the park. And, maybe I should have been a bit more assertive and asked, can I play in the middle of the park? No. But because you were the best player in school and because the best player played up front as a kid, that's why I was centre-forward. So, great question. But one moment in time.
But you had, I know we play it down and we're having a laugh and a joke about it, but you had a brilliant career.
Thanks.
If you would have played in the centre of the park as a midfielder,
what's this, yeah?
Do you think you would have had a better career?
From early on, yes. Because you think, Fred, I learnt my trade as a centre-forward.
Yeah.
I learnt the movements of a centre-forward. I learnt to go towards the ball, to spinning behind, go away from the ball to come and get the ball to feet, linking play, back to goal. So if I'd have learned to be a midfield player from a younger age, and this is where Matthew's 10,000 hours are coming to play,
you'd have developed a different repertoire of skills.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I believe if I'd have...
It's interesting.
I'd have started from the age of 9, 10, 11 as a set midfield player, I think my skills would have been better. And I believe, and I'm going to say this, and I do put myself down, I influenced...
You do too much.
I captained 4 Premier League sides,
yeah.
Captained my country, won Player of the Year every club I went for, influenced big Premier League games. If I'd have played with better players as a set midfielder from a younger age, I believe I could have played Champions League football.
So do you feel fulfilled then?
It's a good question. There's a slight piece of me thinking, what if I would have started in midfield at a younger age?
Huh? Very interesting. But I mean, you mentioned, do you feel completely fulfilled? You were one of the all-time greats.
I wasn't. That is a myth.
No, you were.
I'm going to stop this right now. I was decent, and we had this discussion the other week, didn't we, about greats? And there's a handful of greats.
Gary Sobers isn't one.
Well, I might backtrack on that.
I've seen him backtrack on Twitter.
I've been doing a bit of research on Sir Garfield. He was proper, wasn't he? I got that one wrong. Every now and then, Robbie, every now and then, I tell my wife this. It doesn't happen very often, but I do get it wrong. I am human after all.
So what one moment then would you regret? What you would change?
It's not a regret,
okay,
because my theory on regrets is different to a lot of people's. You are faced with a choice, and your state of mind and your emotion chooses the automatic route. Yep. It's not a choice. That's what you do. Looking back, if I could change one moment of my career, and in some ways I'm going to contradict myself because I'm glad I did it, because as a person now, I feel I learned a lot from it. And what it would be was taking the England captaincy before the 2006-07 tour of Australia. I'm glad I did in some ways. We got beat. I found a lot out about myself.
5-0, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Sorry.
Subsequently.
Oh, whitewash.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else?
Do you think it's too early for you?
No. I think I captained England before that, right? And I was never really the captain. Michael Vaughan was injured. I took over for a little bit. I got injured. Andrew Strauss took over. Yeah. Then I came back and I'd do it. And when I was playing well as a cricketer, I found the England captaincy not an easy job, but easier. Because if I had to do something, I'd just do it myself. It's fine. I'll bat, I'll bowl, I'll get on with it. Mm-hmm. When I started getting injured and I started missing a lot of time, I'd come back into the side, not just as a player, but also as captain. And I'd missed a lot of the things that was going on around the game. I wasn't match fit. I was fit to pass a fitness test. But you know, it's like, you've got to get match fit. You need miles in my legs, bowling and batting. And then, looking back, when I took the captaincy for that Ashes tour, there was something not quite right about it. It wasn't right. I remember being in Portugal. I was on one of these warm weather training things with a physio. My family came out and was training hard. And it was in constant contact with the selectors, and it was almost like The Voice or The X Factor, where it's almost like a vote. It's like a public vote. Am I captain? Am I not captain? And I'm thinking, well, if you want me as captain, just tell me, and I'll crack on with it. But there's an element of doubt in this. And then also, I remember I got unveiled as captain. We went down to the Oval, and the squad got announced. I got announced as captain, and I was there, and I was stood, and I was doing the press, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure this is right. I'm not sure this is right. I am captain of a side. I have had no control who's on this side. I'm looking at my team thinking, I probably won't have 4 or 5 of you at least. So I've got no control over the captaincy. Personally, I don't know how I'm playing because I've been injured for so long. My sole focus has been getting fit. Andrew Strauss, to be fair, has been doing a decent job. So at that point, I should have thought, you know what? I should have trusted my instincts a little bit more.
Said no.
Well, I got wrapped up in it. Everyone was asking. And then you meant to say, yeah, you know what? I want to be captain. I want to be captain. And I realised probably afterwards my best role within the team was I could lead through performance and be a good right-hand man for the captain, not necessarily taking the armband. For the side to be successful, I had to be playing well and I had to be fit. And at that point in time, I wasn't. And with the captaincy as well. And then as the tour went on, it just got worse.
But both of you, in a sense, have chosen things off the field of play. You making the decision to take the England captaincy for that tour of Australia. Robbie, your inability to be assertive enough to move into the midfield when you're a youth player. But is there anything you've done on the field of play that you think that was a terrible mistake? Maybe a challenge that you were involved in, Freddie, maybe a field positioning that you went for, a shot that you played that was the wrong shot at the wrong time and it sent you on a trajectory you didn't want?
Well, the problem with cricket is bowling is you get 6 opportunities and over. Yeah. If you bowl 1 bad ball, I've got 5 more. It's fine.
To be fair, 8, I seen you bowled. 2 wise usually an over.
But then with batting, you get 1 chance. It's very, very rare. In a career, probably a handful of times, I can honestly say the bowler got me out. Mm-hmm. The rest of it is your fault.
Right.
You played a bad shot, you made a rash decision, or something's happened. So to say, would you change 1 is particularly hard to do. And I got out in the 90s a few times, which I was never quite that bothered about because I got 90 odd, that's all right. Yeah. I don't need to raise my bat and wander around and punch the air. 90 odd's fine. Yeah. But then, for me, my decisions all centre around England captaincy, looking back.
Wow.
Looking back.
You won...
I'm glad I did it. No, this is the contradiction. I'm really glad
you were England captain.
Did it. I've got it on my CV. I was England captain. Not a particularly good one. But
you know now, because I know you really well, as an England captain, who put the arm around you? Because people don't know you are quite shy, insecure, and as the captain, you've got to be assertive. I think that you need an arm around you at times. Get what I mean?
That's why I fell out with a few, not the team, but then I fell out a bit with the side a little bit. Not like one person, although there was a couple I can't stand. Well, when I was struggling... I thought that I was pretty good at helping people out struggling. And then when I was, It was like, any chance? Like?
You're the captain. You should.
You're going to help me out, right from the coach downwards.
You're immortal. You're the captain. You're
supposed to be invulnerable, sort of emotional.
And I
think the leadership figure.
Yeah. But what about you, Matthew? All right, ping pong. Is there a time you should have gone for a backhand? Should have gone for a slice?
Yeah, do you know, when I got this question, I immediately came up with a moment that I regret. I'm a little bit ashamed of. Ooh. And it involves Desmond Douglas.
Oh.
National Championship final, 1998. Best of 5 games up to 21. Tight match. Never beaten him before. He was slightly past his best. I was at my absolute peak. We were bitter rivals, but very dear friends as well. Got to about 14 all in the 5th. Nail biter. And there's something in table tennis that you never do. And it's when your opponent gets an edge and the umpire doesn't see it, you never deny it. You own up. You tell the truth.
Yeah.
That is like one of the most morally basic things that top table tennis players always do. Now, Des, I mentioned it in a previous podcast. He was very helpful to me. He invited me to his home in Birmingham when I was 15. We trained together. He was a wonderful mentor. He was also the most honest player. You know, it could be an edge that you didn't even see. Yeah. And he would say, that touched. He would put his hand up and say, that touched. 14 all in the 5th. He top-spun the ball with his forehand and it caught the edge of the table. It was a fine contact. He knew it had touched. I knew it had touched. He knew that I knew. Most of the front row of the audience spotted it. The umpires didn't. They moved the score to 15-14 to me. And I wanted to win this tournament. National Championships. I was defending the title. I was England #1. I wanted to beat Des. I'd never beaten him before. And I remember that really vivid moment.
I can't look at you.
And do you know what I did?
I can't look at you.
I looked at Des and I said, I don't think it touched. He said, no. He said, no, I think
we had a conversation about it.
No, so we're standing there in between. And he said, no, I think it did touch, Matthew. I said, Des, I don't think it did. And I felt this deep conflict inside. I knew what I was doing was wrong and I just couldn't. And then in my bench, there was my brother, Dennis Neal, former England #1, one of Chester Barnes's contemporaries, and Brian Halliday, a dear and old friend. And Brian stood up. He said, look, Matthew, I don't want to allow you to do this. You know that it touched. And it was quite embarrassing for somebody on my side to say that. And then I said, OK, the ball touched. Des got the point. And he said, OK, thanks for acknowledging it. It took a while. But anyway, I went on to win the match. I gave a speech afterwards, the mayor, there was a civic reception and I paid tribute to Des. Didn't mention the fact that I'd tried to cheat him. And I kind of took this with me for a long time. We remained friends and then I wrote a long column about it in the Times. But even that didn't really get rid of the guilt because what I did was completely wrong. It was unacceptable. And worst of all, it was to a great guy. And if I could change one thing, I would love to change that.
I've cheated a few people out. When you get them out, and then you know that the umpire stuck his finger up, but it's not out, but who cares? But the one time where I have cheated someone out, I'm not proud of it, but I don't think regret's the right word. But I was fielding, I was 21 years old, I was playing at Edgbaston against the West Indies. And Jimmy Adams, brilliant West Indian batter, he's in the 90s, and I'm fielding at short cover, which he's left-handed, so if he looks up, I'm just in his eye line. So Darren Goff's ball one. He's hit it to me at short cover. I've dived one-handed.
Bounced, is it?
Oh, it's bounced, yeah. It's bounced, and I've scooped it up, and I've got this ball in my hand, and Goffey started celebrating. He's got his arms up in the air. It's his 5th wicket as well, so Goffey thinks he's got 5. So I'm there with his ball in my hand, I've got this, moral conundrum.
Yeah.
What do? Do I let Goffey down? Which I don't want to do. Do I just cheat and say he's out? Or do I call him back? I went with the first one. I just threw the ball up in the air and then went and high-fived Goffey. No. And I'll never forget Jimmy Adams. Jimmy Adams was just looking at me because he knew it had bounced. I knew it had bounced. And then walked off and...
Did he raise it with you after?
Never mentioned again?
No.
Just a quick one for you, Matthew, on this. You said that as a table tennis player.
Yeah.
But you're a journalist as well.
Mm.
Have you regretted an article, a piece, a comment that you've put out in the press?
Well, there is one article that I think I do regret. Peter Ebdon, he played Ronnie O'Sullivan. I think it was in the World Championship, I don't know, 10 years ago. And he's quite a slow player.
Oh, he does dishwasher.
Yeah, unbelievable. And Ronnie O'Sullivan was in the corner, and he kind of draped this towel over his head while Ebden was playing, and he was sort of gorging his forehead with his nails. He was clearly getting really wound up by Ebden taking forever over completely routine shots. And I like Ronnie, I know him pretty well. I was angry, and I wrote this piece in an angry frame of mind and effectively called Ebden a cheat. But I did it I laid out the facts, and then I said, in my opinion, that was too far. That was cheating. So I made a distinction between what had happened and my opinion on why Ebden sued.
He sued you?
He sued the Times for libel. It was a legal precedent because instead of going to court, it went to something called binding arbitration. First time it had ever happened, where you go in. Our lawyer and his lawyer went and argued it in front of an official. It was a cheaper way of going, but Ebden lost. They found on our side. They thought it was fair comment. And a book has just been published in the last 2 or 3 weeks where Ebden was interviewed about this, and he said it really affected him for many years, being called a cheat when he was doing his best. And he said it was probably his best ever performance as a snooker player, and all of the joy he would have taken to it was evaporated when he read this article, and the fact that many people agreed with me. Looking back on it, I think I was a bit harsh on him, and I regret the fact that he was so wounded by it all.
You're real dark side to you, isn't there? What's happened? Des Douglas, you've cheated him. Now you've ruined Peter Ebden's career.
I know.
Is that why he's fell out? Hey, he had a ponytail.
Do you know, when I saw the book publication, he's become a vegan. He's moved to Budapest.
That's you, Budapest.
Do you know what? On the football field, one regret I've got, I've got a lot of regrets, but the biggest, so getting Justin Edinburgh sent off when he hardly touched me in the cup final, I was embarrassed. It was stupid. Looking back now, hypocritical of me to call other players out. Went in for a challenge. He thought I fouled him. He got up, swung, caught my hair, and I went down clutching my face. Nonsense, horrible, ridiculous.
Career threatening for you, that though, wasn't it?
It was a bad day. I'm embarrassing. Other things. But the biggest regret this might sound daft, right, is not headbutting or punching Dion Dublin back when he headbutted me.
Yeah.
Because all I get now is, oh, look, when he headbutted me, and it gets played all the time. And I wish now, at that moment, looking back, I'd have headbutted him back and had a fight.
So let's just get this right. Your biggest regret in life is not headbutting
Dion Dublin.
No, back. Because when seriously, I know it sounds bizarre, right? It's bizarre. It is. It's bizarre.
I'll be honest with you, Rob. It'd be like taking a butter knife to a gunfight, that.
I'm not sure.
Fight.
You've seen me.
You've seen me. Ping pong challenge. Let's invite Dublin round. We'll get a boxing ring out there.
You've seen me on the boot camps.
Yeah, you're in
You've
there
seen
now.
me right arm.
Oh, he's riled up. He's eyeballing me now. Look at him. Whoa.
Southpaw.
Robbie, don't you think you're a bigger man, not reacting?
No, because I'm thinking now, I'm looking back, and I've done lots of things I regret. Getting Edinburgh sent off, it was embarrassing. Getting players sent off when I've acted, when I've dived. Not dived, there's been contact, I've exaggerated it because I never dived.
Yep.
There was always been contact when I've simulated it. But when I look back now, and all these videos, every time something happens on these, look what happened in Premier League years, 2000, whatever year it was. That they just show that, and I get hammered on. So, and it didn't hurt. I wish now. Listen, I don't want to fight Dion Dublin. What I'm saying is,
just get that straight right now. Just get that straight right now. He's not coming for you.
I wish now, because I was the innocent victim. It was a bad tackle, and he's got up and he headbutted me. I wish I'd have stood up now because it didn't hurt and headbutted him back.
Yeah, but
and had a fight and got sent off.
Look at you now. Hey, he's an extra on Holmes under
I know
hammer.
that sounds
what you're
stupid.
Doing.
The Holmes the hammer.
You said that. I love that line. Yeah. It's the Holmes under the hammer syndrome again.
Is that wrong for me to say that?
No,
Robbie,
it's your opinion, isn't it? Not why is it wrong?
Okay, genuinely, I think it is your opinion. I have to say, I think that's wrong. I think if somebody comes after you on the field of play in a completely unacceptable way and you retaliate, I think that's worse. I think you should take it and say, you know what you did was wrong, and I'm not going to compound that by escalating it.
Fair point.
I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah,
me too.
Why?
You don't want to be Robbie Savage, butter.
Yeah, but it's just...
He's covered himself in no glory there. Why do you want to be in that bracket?
And he'd have beaten you up.
How do you know?
I'm winding you up. We've got to get this up.
He probably would, but That's one of the regrets, that I didn't stick up for me. But at the end of the day, we went on to win the game 2-0, and they were down to 10 men. So, morally,
he's pricing up 2-bedroom houses in Grimsby.
Do you know, funnily enough, just last thing on
What?
I think Dion Dublin, he's a nice fella and does a good job.
Yeah, just to throw that in case he comes after you. Joe, I got to know Joey Barton really, really well. We became very close friends when he was living in Kew, and I live in Richmond. We'd hang out a lot. Joey Barton thought, when I first met him, that it was manly if somebody came after him physically or verbally, you reacted. That's what a man did. And I said to him, you know what, I think it's even more manly to walk away, to say, you know what, I'm not going to get involved in a violent spat. I mean, I'm not sure it had a huge effect, but I think it's had a certain effect on Joe, and I think he feels differently now about on-field violence and off-field violence. That's why I'm surprised that you're somebody with a broad perspective on life. That's why I'm quite surprised you regret not headbutting Dion Dublin. That's not like you.
No, it's not, but I just get fed up of all these clowns and idiots posting on social media every time something happens. Oh, look at this! The LWA butted me. So I
won't do it again.
Exactly.
I'm not telling the kids who listen to this and people to headbutt people. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that one moment, because I've done everything else on a football field, which is I'm embarrassed about. Why I should have gone back at him.
Flintoff, Savage, and the Ping Pong Guy.
On digital, online, smartphone and tablet. This is BBC 5 Live.
With the 5 Live News at 8 o'clock, I'm Rachel Bland. Good evening. Officers investigating the Manchester Arena suicide bombing are carrying out further searches this evening. 2 operations are underway in the Rusholme and Gorton areas of the city. Earlier, a man was arrested in the Old Trafford area and a search was carried out at a house in Moss Side. Our Home Affairs correspondent Tom Simons is there.
Heavily armed officers came and they arrested 3 men at that property. But later in the afternoon, Greater Manchester Police announced that these men had been de-arrested. It's caused a great deal of discomfort in this part of South Manchester. The people at the house put a sign on their door saying, "This is what the police have caused. We have nothing to do with what happened in the bombing."
Securities dominated the election campaign today. The Home Secretary Amber Rudd reaffirmed the Conservatives would set up a commission to promote British values and tackle extremism. Labour's promised 10,000 extra police. The leader of the Scottish National Party, Nicola Sturgeon, says the SNP would consider working with Labour in the event of a hung parliament. Speaking during an interview with Andrew Neil, she said she'd consider a progressive alliance with Jeremy Corbyn.
We'll work for progressive policies and we'll work for the policies we put forward in our manifesto. If there was to be a hung parliament, of course we would look to be part of a progressive alliance that pursued progressive policies. The reality of this election is that we're going to face a Tory government perhaps with a bigger majority. So my priority is to say to people in Scotland, if you want Scotland's interests to be protected and our voice heard, then you've got to vote SNP.
But Mr Corbyn's ruled out any alliance with the SNP, saying the party's fighting to win the election. More than a third of British Airways flights from Heathrow have been cancelled as thousands of passengers were disrupted for a second day. The airlines apologised to customers after it was hit by a worldwide computer system power failure. Police in Northern Ireland say they've begun a murder investigation after a 55-year-old man was shot dead in a supermarket car park in Bangor. Several hundred shoppers were in the area at the time of the shooting. And art world satire The Square has won the top prize at the Cannes Film Festival. The Swedish film was one of 19 competing for the prestigious Palme d'Or in the 70th year of the festival. That's the latest news. Let's get the sport now. Here's Andrew Lindsay.
Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel has a 25-point lead over Lewis Hamilton in the Formula One drivers' standings after winning the Monaco Grand Prix. Hamilton's Mercedes finished 7th. Hamilton Academical will stay in the Scottish Premiership after beating Dundee United this afternoon. Blackpool's 2-1 win over Exeter moves them back up to League One. England have rested Moeen Ali, Ben Stokes and Chris Wokes ahead of tomorrow's 3rd ODI against South Africa. Liam Dawson, Stephen Finn and Toby Rowland-Jones come into the squad. Dan Evans lost in 4 sets to Spain's Tommy Robredo in the French Open. The rugby union friendly against Barbarians ended 28-14 for England at Twickenham. Sweden's Alex Noren set a Wentworth course record while winning the PGA Championship. Tom Dumoulin came from 53 seconds back to win the Giro d'Italia by 31 seconds. There was a gold and 3 bronze medals for Great Britain's rowers on finals day at the European Championships. And the trainer Aidan O'Brien completed the Guineas double-double thanks to Winter, ridden by Ryan Moore.
This is BBC 5 Live on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
The weather, rain which could be torrential and thundery for some parts, will spread northwards, affecting some southern and central areas this evening and overnight. Feeling muggy in the south, dry across the far north of Scotland, but rain will reach Northern Ireland and southern Scotland later. Overnight lows down to 11 to 17 degrees.
The best live sport coming up this June on 5 Live and 5 Live Sports Extra.
Scotland take on England in a 2018 World Cup qualifier. Formula One rolls into Canada. Erin Hills, Wisconsin hosts the 117th US Open. The Lions kick off their tour of New Zealand in Auckland and will be live at Britain's most valuable race meeting, Royal Ascot.
The best live sport this June on 5 Live and 5 Live Sports Extra.
Now on 5 Live, we rejoin Freddie, Robbie and Matthew for some of the best bits from their podcast, Flintoff Savage and the Ping Pong Guy. This programme is pre-recorded, so please don't phone or text.
This is Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
Next topic. What age should children specialise in sport? And that obviously has lots of connotations about when should professional clubs, in football in particular, pick up children. What about the role of agents in developing young people into the professionals they could become? Some of the difficulties emotionally when you get rejected by a club that you dream of playing for. What's your take on it?
Well, we've done parents in sport, but this is obviously a new angle because myself and Freddie have got children linked. Obviously, my boys are Manchester United, and Freddie's boys are doing so well in cricket. Mm-hmm. So it got me thinking, what is the right age? What's acceptable for these big clubs, for any club to pick up youngsters when they spot a talent?
Yep.
My boy was 5. Yeah, 5. He was playing in I'm not sure if it was school or something. I don't know what happened, but he was spotted and was asked to go to a development centre for Manchester United. Wow. in a little youth setup. Went there, and then he eventually progressed and signed forms, and then he's been with them ever since. He's now 13. I've just come back from a talk with Mallorca where he'd done ever so well. They lost to Liverpool, and he's seen the world. He's had experience. He's been in dressing rooms with his mates, and for me, it's been quite a good thing because it's made him grow up quicker. But looking back now, you see the percentages of kids who get released.
Yeah.
And listen, I don't know if my boy's going to be a footballer or not. Listen, he's very educated. He's at a good school, very clever. And as we explained in previous podcasts, what they go through is to combine the both, because it's very hard, is a credit to him. But
what was it like for him as a 5-year-old? Because I've got a 4-year-old daughter, and I'm trying to think of what it would be like emotionally to be selected by a club as big as Manchester United and then suddenly have the pressure, presumably, of having to deliver.
Well, I remember what happened to me. You know, I was at school and I was the kid in the local papers signed for Manchester United. You know, you're the everybody wanted to know you. Everybody wanted to be on your side in football. You grew in stature because you were the main man. You signed for Manchester United. I think it's changed a little bit now because there's so many. You know, there's agents out there who are looking after kids as young as 12, 13.
That young?
Yeah.
So how does it work?
Yeah.
Right, you take on, how many kids are there?
So, for instance, in Charlie's team, there's probably 20, 25 kids.
And there's that amount at each age group down to 5 to 16?
I would say, probably more. And the drop-off percentage gets bigger every year. The older they get, you know, I don't know if my boy's going to be disappointed or not, but what I'm dreading, if that day comes and I'm going to have to sit him down and say, listen, son, you know, at a critical age of his life, GCSEs, I don't know, it might be this week, it might be next week, it might be in 4 years, he might have a great career, who knows? But as a parent, I might have to get myself to that day when he's going to get released, possibly. And how am I going to say to him, if it happens, it might not, listen, son, not quite good enough here. You've got to have to bounce back. But
there are 12,500 young people in football academies, and like 0.05 of 1% make it into the Premier League. It is a tiny fraction. So the vast majority have the big dream. They get closer to it because they're invited into an academy. Then they have the crushing realisation that it's not going to be for them.
I'm not putting your word in this, but part of me thinks, what's the point of these academies? Well, you got Man City, they've got an academy, and they bring all these kids in. I've seen them. They've got kids walking around in tracksuits, and they put them through school, and all very well and good, and they take them from a young age, and they drop them. But then they just go and buy a player.
Yeah.
They just go and buy him. I don't understand.
So the difference for me now, difference when I come through, there was lads, David Beckham's from Leytonstone, I was from Wales, and it was Great Britain were in these academies, Northern Ireland. Now, people from all over the world are coming into these academies, and it's become about winning, more winning at a certain age. Do you know what I mean? So if you're 12, 13, you've got to win these games, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. Whereas in my generation, it was more probably of producing players. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's different, maybe I'm completely wrong, but I'm looking at my boy now, Fred, and the boys there, they've got agents. And is it a good thing to have an agent at such a young age? Well,
I don't understand. What does a kid need an agent for? What? I've just got this horrible image now of all these agents hanging round kids' football, thinking, taking them in en masse. Let's take 10 of these kids here. One of them, he might make a big move for £20 million when he's older, and I get me 5-10%. And it's like vultures, this.
So, because it's so lucrative, when I had an agent, I think you had to have so many Swiss francs in a bank account to be a licensed agent. I think that's changed now where, so for instance, if it was me, I could be my boy's agent. I think I pay a £500 fee and then 250 quid a year. And then, I don't know if you have to do a course, but I could be my son's agent. Yeah. And for me, I'm thinking, right, is that a good thing to do? Because if he made it and went on to be so successful, then I would become, because of my knowledge of football, and I think I've been in those circumstances, you would be a multimillionaire, wouldn't you, as part of your family. So, for instance, there's so many players now youngsters who have progressed and doing well, might have part of their family looking after them.
Yeah.
But where it changes is, do you need a specialised agent in a?
What age are we talking about? Kids having agents?
I think 11, 12.
11 years old?
Yeah.
And you know what?
I don't think they're allowed to sign with them, no. But I think they can look
verbal
after
agreement.
them.
What's to do, like paying family or?
I don't know. I really don't know.
As a parent, if you've got like you guys, if you've got a child involved in sport, realistically, there's a chance they're not going to make it. So you're going to be encouraging them to develop as people as well as players. You want them to do their education, so they've got a fallback position. The agents, some of them are good. I know a lot of agents. A lot of them are slippery, slimy characters who sell the dream, don't give a damn about investing for the future in education. If they have a player who does get to the Premier League, don't give a damn about making sure they have enough money tucked away so that they have a lifestyle after they retire. Some of them are on kickbacks when they go into investments. It's absolutely disgraceful. So I want to come to you in just one step, Freddie, but what would be your advice, Robbie, to parents who have young people who are involved in football? How hard should they push them at a young age? Should they be going into academies? Should they be specialising in football so early? Why not play a number of different sports until 10 or 12?
Well, that's the thing, my two boys love cricket as well.
Right.
They absolutely love cricket. But, do I regret giving him that opportunity? Because now, so at Manchester United Academy, he loves it, he enjoys it, he can't wait to get there. He goes on a Monday. He goes on a Tuesday afternoon, misses part of school. Mm-hmm. He goes on a Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So for him, added to that his homework and his pressures from school education, it's very difficult. And at times I think to myself, do you know what? He'd be better off not on academy, because I still believe if you're good enough, somebody will see you. We've seen Ian Wright, Jamie Vardy. We've seen these players. Okay, they are few and far between, but do I feel like I've pressurised him? Because I don't. No. He really loves it. But there's so many pitfalls. But what I'll say, mate, Manchester United have given him an opportunity. Even if he gets released, Ed, even if he gets released, he's had an opportunity to go to football tournaments, to see the world, to have the best coaching. And how
do you turn down
Yeah.
That's a difficult
as
thing.
a parent, you've got Manchester United.
Yeah.
The biggest club, arguably, in the world, wanting your lad all these opportunities. How do you say to your kid, if he gets to 18, 17, or you could have gone United, but we decided not to.
Yeah, it's very difficult, Fred.
The one thing about Charlie, your lad, is, me and the missus talk about it, we're using an example for our kids, because he's not just a footballer.
Yeah.
He's unbelievably bright, and we use him as an example to my two.
Yeah.
Because look at Charlie, what Charlie's doing. And then even the things like we listen to you and Sarah talk about, because this is not available at cricket, where Charlie goes to United and they monitor everything, don't they? They monitor his growth, his development, when he's going to have a growth spurt, and see when he should play, when he shouldn't play. And I this is all foreign stuff to me, so I try and apply that to my kids. But cricket's very different. I remember I started off, there's no academy system, no nothing. I went for a Lancashire trial when I was 9 for the under-11s. We got a coach come to the club. My dad got in. He said, why don't you send him for a trial? And I got in the system and carried through. And when you talk, Lancashire have got an academy now, and I'm not sure about it. I don't know. The jury for me is out on it, because I did it the old way. You get to 16, and then the club either take you on as a professional or they don't. And that's what happened for me. And I said, yeah, go on, I'll do it. Where now, it seems academies in cricket they're quite a cheap way to control players and keep hold of them. And they get them all together. And you can see players, you see them and you look at them thinking, you've got all these lads in here, you're giving them hope, and instantly, I feel I'm a pretty good judge of a player.
Yeah.
And you look at them, and I can look at a player and say, you're not going to be a professional cricketer. Yeah. You are not going to be a professional cricketer. And in some ways, these clubs are giving these kids a bit of false hope. When they should be doing not something else, because they probably enjoy it. But it's building them up for a failure.
How old were you, Fred, when cricket became serious, where you stopped playing other sports and you began to focus exclusively on trying to make it through in that game?
Pretty soon. I played Lancashire from being 9. I played mini rugby for the school at Preston Grasshoppers, and they said, we want you to play rugby. I said, no, thanks, not for me, that. I'm not a big fan of pheasants and venison. So I didn't do that. I played football at school for acceptance, and I played for a local team, and I played a few games for Preston Boys, but I was never into it.
Yep.
And then it was 15. I played for Lancashire under-15s against Yorkshire. The fella, John Savage, bless him, now he's died, old fella, came up to me and said, do you want to play for the second team tomorrow? I had no idea what he was on about. I said, second team or what? What are you on about? He said, speak to me dad. So the next day, I was at Old Trafford playing for the reserves at 15 against Glamorgan in a 3-day game. And I never forget, I was in the dressing room and I didn't know half the conversations that were going on, but I just wanted to play cricket. And at the end of the 3 days, I got given an envelope with £60 in, my match fee. And I got 10p a mile or something for my dad's petrol. And I was stood there, I'll never forget it, I had this envelope in my hand, and at that point I thought, you get paid to play cricket? How good is this? Yeah. And then after that, although I got my GCSEs and everything, I just stopped everything, school, everything. I just want to be a cricketer. That's it. I'm going to be a cricketer. You can get paid, it's a job, I love it.
Well, I think as a parent, but with my son, what these kids have got to understand is it's nothing personal, it's ruthless.
Yep.
It's a ruthless, as Freddie's alluded to, it's a ruthless business.
Yeah, and for me, sort of just taking a step back, you're right, the chances of making it through to play professional sport
especially Manchester United,
are minimal.
That's a big club.
Premier League or to get into an England cricket team.
Yeah.
And even if you do, the career is short. It's painfully short. You have to retire in your 30s. In most jobs, you carry on and you're getting promoted all the way through into your 50s, possibly even early 60s. And for me, it's about whether they're enjoying it. Are they developing as human beings in the sport? So that if they do get told at some point, you know what, you're not going to make it to play for United, you may not be a Premier League player, they can look at what they did as a footballer and say, that was a really important part of my life. And that in turn, are they doing it because they love the game, or are they doing it because the parent is pushing them?
I hear of kids being released from the Premier League clubs, and then straight away their parents saying, well, I'm going to ring X, Y and Z. Well, no, why are you doing that? Surely you should ask your boy first, do you love it? Do you enjoy it? Do you want to carry on? And if that's if my boy got released, honestly, I wouldn't ring up clubs and say he's been released by Manchester United. do you want to look at him and trial? I'd let him go back to school, play with his mates, play for the school team. Then if somebody sees him and says, do you know what? Come for a trial, then that's what I would do. But everybody's different, Fred.
Well, I believe that if you're good enough, you make it.
I'm with you.
I think it's pretty black and white in my eyes. But one thing to you, Rob, I'm hard on my kids.
Yeah.
When it comes to sport and cricket, I'm hard on them. I don't know if it's because I know what professional sport's all about. I know the good things, the bad things. I know how good you got to be and how hard you've got to work to be at the top. And even my boys 9 and 11, I'm hard on them. But are you the same with your lads, having experienced it? I'm not one of these parents, although I do it, who everything's brilliant, and everything's rosy, and you make mistakes and all that. I tell them.
I'm starting to get slightly harder with him because I do him to think in 2, 3, 4 years' time, I wish I could have done that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's what I don't want him to happen. So I'm getting slightly harder as the older's getting because he's becoming more ruthless.
And it's worth saying the science on this, I mean, there's a lot of different viewpoints in the psychological literature about early specialisation. Everyone used to say, Tiger Woods started specialising in golf at the age of 2. He played his first pitch and putt round at the age of 3, played 5,000 hours of golf by the age of 5. The Williams sisters, Mozart. Now I think it's more mixed. People who do a number of different sports and start to specialise a bit later at 10, 11, 12, 13 can sometimes do a lot better because they get what they call a broader physical literacy. They develop a wider array of skills that they can then channel at a later date. So I think it's worth parents remembering that it isn't a bad thing for children to have a number of different things that are interesting. And in some ways, it makes it more fun rather than being quite narrow.
Also, don't get disheartened. There's not many Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs in this world, the people who are brilliant from an early age. Sometimes you'd rather be the one that's on an upward curve, not the best in the class, not the worst, but who's improving week in, week out, and the late developer. So don't get too disheartened if you play down a level because of your physical size, and that happens to a lot of people. Look at Jesse Lingard. He played down a level. Now look at him, just signed a new contract, massive part of Manchester United team. So to people out there, people develop differently. And there's always hope, but I'm with you too. If you're good enough, you'll make it.
Final topic, home advantage in sport. Now, this is, for me, it's pretty weird. I mean, footballers travel to away grounds. They stay in top hotels. The dressing rooms are fantastic. The pitches are a bit different, but not that different. And yet home advantage is still an extraordinarily strong phenomenon, not just in football, but in many different sports. Just a few stats. According to The Economist in 2014, host countries at the World Cup outperform expectations by an average of 11 places. So if they were expected to finish 16th, they would finish 5th. In club football, one blog compiling results between 2010 and 2015 from 64 different leagues, they found that the ratio of home to away wins was 2.53. I mean, this is unbelievable. Why is home advantage such a big deal?
In cricket, it's massive. Absolutely.
Really? Because nobody's there. Nobody watches.
What do you mean nobody's there?
Well, you could go to Lancashire tomorrow. There'd be 4 people and a dog.
Yeah, but football, you turn up, you're playing on a pitch which might change a little bit. Might be a yard smaller, a yard bigger. It's a piece of grass.
Yeah.
You got, wherever you go, you've got idiots in crowd, so it don't matter. They're all chancing at each other, so that don't matter. Cricket, the pitches are tailored for your team.
Yeah.
You prepare a pitch in the middle, you put the boundaries in or out. When you play in the subcontinent, that's why England's always struggled.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different game. The ball spins, it's slow, it doesn't bounce. In England, we try and get them a bit quicker. I remember when I was captain, we got beat at Nottingham by Sri Lanka. And this ground, this pitch, I was so disappointed. It might as well have been in Colombo. The pitch spun, it was dry, and we got absolutely hammered. And then I'm thinking, am I stupid here or what? Are we not playing in Nottingham? Why is this pitch tailored for the Sri Lankans? And I did a press conference after. I'm walking in with media manager. He's saying, what do you think? I said, well, that pitch was a shocker. Absolute shocker. He said, oh, don't say that. I said, what do you mean don't say that? This is our home game and we're playing on a pitch tailored for them, but you can't say that. I said, well, I'm going to. So I said that. I got absolutely hammered.
How much discretion do the grounds people have? I mean, you couldn't have a pitch
Depends how well you know them.
But could they make the pitch uneven to make it more difficult for
You wouldn't make it uneven, but if you were playing against India, you'd leave it green.
Uh-huh.
There's a good part. I didn't realise that in the picture, yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, football, there's no difference.
I think the difference. So when you play at home,
You got a different corner flag?
see, sometimes as a player, when you're underperforming, sometimes you'd rather play away because you will say the best fans for your club travel away. That's what you hear a lot. And when things aren't going well, especially when I was at Derby County, you'd hide. The crowd with 30,000 people were on you were losing, and it become volatile. Songs saying you're not fit to wear the shirt, and it become a very difficult place to play football. And obviously it was our fault because we were rubbish and weren't good enough. But home advantage, you're accustomed to your routine. The same bed at night. In my case, it was the spare bed downstairs. You'd get up in the morning, you'd be around your family, your children, you'd be excited going in the car to them, you'd drop them off, you'd be in the change room, you'd have your same routine, then you'd go onto the pitch. It was just something, being at home when things were going well is incredible.
Let me give you another possibility to explain home advantage in football, not about the players, about the referees. There's this experiment where referees watch game on a TV, some with the sound off and others with the sound on. Those with the sound on were 15% less likely to give decisions against the home team.
Really?
In other words, when you can hear the crowd and they're going after you, whenever you give a decision against the home team, subconsciously it's affecting the referee so that they're more reluctant to give a decision against the home team.
If I was with the referee, if I was playing at home, I would try and referee the game with him. As captain, I'd be saying, listen to them.
Yeah.
Listen to the 30,000. They think you made their own decision. I'd be constantly at him. And if I was away from home, I'd be saying the same thing. Listen to them. They're laughing at you now.
Yeah.
Giving everything to the home side. So I can see that from my perspective. Listen, referees are neutral and they referee the game. Whatever they say, I don't believe from a referee's point of view that they would be swayed whether it's home or away. Do you know what I mean? For that particular side, I really don't. But away matches, I didn't like being away from home in the hotel. Going on the bus, 3 hours on a bus.
Yeah.
If you were
not
travelling.
3 hours on a bus. Especially if they didn't have Sky.
Yeah,
and an Xbox and a shower.
We used to play bingo. We used to play bingo on the bus.
Play bingo?
Yeah, bingo. Nigel Clough brought bingo, and I was the bingo call at the front of the bus.
You was the caller. Come on, and do your calling.
Oh.
Come on, give us some calls.
11. Legs 11.
Yeah, what's 88?
88 is two fat ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, yeah.
Kelly's Eye.
What? Kelly's Eye, number 1.
Yeah. Maggie's Den.
Number 10.
Yeah,
there you go, see?
On its own. Number 3.
Also, the lads used to play cards on the bus, and there was
Key to the door, 21.
There was on away journeys, there was a...
Two Little Ducks, 22.
In the early days of Leicester, lots of money was played for on the back of the bus, card schools.
Yep.
I never got involved in thousands of pounds, by the way. So, you would try and...
How much was bingo at? What did you get for 4 corners?
I think you won about, it was a 5 each or something.
What, 4 corners? Yeah. Then you play your 4 corners and you go on for a line and full house. That's the routine. My Uncle Ted used to do it New Year's Eve. Then we used to play that game, do you know, you pass around pictures. Who is it? You got to write down who's in the picture.
Let's guess who.
Getting back to crowds, away crowds, playing at Headingley against Yorkshire, especially in a 2020 game when it's full, there'd be 20,000 in. It's not often for a domestic game that happens. And you field in front of this stand called the Western Terrace, and it's full of drunks and students. And you stand there, and cricket, it's so hard because you don't move. You just stood there at the mercy, and you get called every name under the sun by the Yorkies. Yeah. I used to call me Honey Monster. Here he is, Honey Monster. There you go, Honey Monster. And then you turn round, and you're being abused by 3 Elvises, 4 Scooby-Doos, and the cast of the WWE. You're like, well, what's going on here? And I played at Headingley. I used to have a shocker at Headingley. For Lancashire, I did all right, and then my first 2 test matches at Headingley, I got 2 ducks in the first one and 2 ducks in the second one. I hated the place. And then you go to Leicester. Dressing room's not even big enough to get your bags in. You're all sat there. Derby, absolute rubbish. Some of these grounds.
Really?
Awful. I tell you what, Lords, I tell you what, there's no place like it.
Lords.
Oh, as a cricketer,
beautiful.
It's not particularly flash. We don't have cryotherapy. There's none of that business. I used to get to Lords, right? I'd go in. I got my routine. I go out for warm-ups for 10 minutes, then come back in. There's a bacon butty waiting next to me chair and a coffee. So I have a bacon butty and a coffee. And then I'd have a coffee before I go out and play. Nice coffees, proper machine. And then you go out, you come in at lunch. I put my order in for lunch already. I put it in. I don't go to I stopped going to the lunchroom because I'd eat too much. So I thought if I get it brought down, I can just have what I want. So I start off with some prawns. I get prawns for lunch, bit of Mary Rose sauce for dipping. Then I get a steak and chips. I'd have my steak and chips. And then they used to do this dessert called Louisiana Love Bite.
Oh.
It was like this chocolate pudding. So I'd have that with custard.
That was most days?
Yeah, then I'd go back out and have a bowl.
Wow.
You wouldn't do that and go and bowl on a full stop.
Do you know what I did when I was captain? I bowled 75 overs in a test match at Lords once, just because I'd eaten so much I didn't want to put weight on. I just kept bowling. My run-up, you see my run-up when I bowled, I could bowl the same pace off half of it. But that was me burning calories. It was fitness. Right? So, right? I'd have that for me lunch. And then we'd come off at tea. Oh, you get a good tea, nice egg butty or something, ham salad sandwiches. And you come off at the day's play, all of a sudden you got kebabs, you got everything after the play. I've had 4 square meals before I'm getting back to the hotel, and I'll go again.
Yes, after the game in the dressing room, we used to have pizza, chips, curry in the dressing room.
Nowhere near as good as prawn, steak and chips. Louisiana Love Bite.
Hey, if it's a batting day, there's a little office at the back where I watch Jeremy Kyle in the morning while the lads are having a bat, and I get food brought down.
Guys, thanks so much. But now, from all of us, goodbye.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
On digital, online, smartphone and tablet. This is BBC 5 Live.
With the 5 Live News, I'm Rachel Bland. Further police searches are underway in Manchester after the Arena suicide attack. Operations are taking place in the Rusholme and Gorton areas of the city this evening, following an earlier arrest in Old Trafford and a house search in Moss Side. The election campaign's been dominated by national security today. The Conservatives have confirmed plans for a commission to promote British values and tackle extremism, while Labour's promised 10,000 additional police officers. Meanwhile, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has ruled out a deal with the SNP after Nicola Sturgeon said she'd consider a progressive alliance between their parties in the event of a hung parliament. And British Airways has apologised to passengers as more than a third of flights from Heathrow have been cancelled. It's the second day of disruption caused by the airline's global computer system failure. Sport now, here's Andrew Lindsay.
Sebastian Vettel has a 25-point lead in the Formula One Drivers' Championship after winning the Monaco Grand Prix. Ferrari teammate Kimi Räikkönen was second ahead of Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo. Lewis Hamilton, second in the standings, ended 7th.
I think it was very good. I'm really happy with it, to be honest. You know, I think to come here today, they had said that we wouldn't even get past 10th. They said that 10th was the best we could get. And so to come away with, I think, was it 5 points or whatever it is, 6 points, I'm so happy with that.
Hamilton Academical will once more play in the Scottish Premiership next season. Their playoff final second leg was a 1-0 win against Dundee United, watched by Roddy Forsyth.
Playoffs rarely enhance the beautiful game, and this never looked like proving the exception. With away goals having no added value, the issue had to be settled on the day, and as time wore on, tension ratcheted up on both sides, which is why the ball spent so much time in the air. But when the breakthrough came, it was worth the wait. Midway through the second half, Aki's favourite Ali Crawford spotted Greg Docherty striding unchecked through the middle, and he laid the ball off perfectly for Docherty to deliver a classic 30-yard grounder strike to beat Cammy Bell and to keep Hamilton Accies in the Scottish Premiership for at least another year.
Blackpool are up to League One in England. They won 2-1 at Wembley against Exeter. Only around 6,000 fans made the trip south as part of a protest against the Oyston family. The winning manager was Gary Bowyer.
It's a fantastic achievement from the players and the staff, to say where we were when we first came in and to have turned it round in under a year is great effort from everybody involved.
In the WSL Spring Series, a 7-0 win for second-place Chelsea over leaders Liverpool. Third-place Manchester City lost to Arsenal. Sunderland beat Yeovil, Reading and Birmingham drew. England will rest Ben Stokes, Chris Wokes and Moeen Ali as injury precautions for tomorrow's third ODI against South Africa at Lords, with Stephen Finn, Toby Rowland-Jones and Liam Dawson in. Dan Evans lost in 4 sets to Spain's Tommy Robredo in the first round of the French Open. Earlier, Petra Kvitova won in her first match since a knife attack on her hand in December, while Angelique Kerber lost to Ekaterina Makarova to become the first women's top seed to lose in the tournament's first round.
This year, the expectations are much bigger, especially
in the big tournaments, in the Grand Slams, and the expectations are also from me really big. I mean, of course, because I know what I can do, what I did last year. But right now I think that I have to find to myself again and just trying to forget the clay court season as soon as possible.
The rugby union friendly against Barbarians ended 28-14 for England at Twickenham. Sweden's Alex Noren won the PGA Championship by 2 shots and claimed a course record at Wentworth, a 10 under par 62. Tom Dumoulin came from 53 seconds back to win the Giro d'Italia by 31 seconds, and there was a gold and 3 bronze medals for Great Britain's rowers on finals day at the European Championships.
This is BBC 5 Live on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
Travel news: Glasgow M73 southbound is closed. That's because of roadworks between Junction 2 for the M8 and Junction 1, the M74. There are delays and cancellations continuing for British Airways flights at Heathrow. The advice is to check your flight is running before travelling to the airport. And passengers travelling on Eurotunnel's Folkestone to Calais line are facing disruption tonight. That's because of technical faults on some shuttles. Eurotunnel says trains are running, but there are delays of around 2.5 hours.
Election 2017 on the BBC. 5 Live's Marginal Mystery Tour.
We're on the road, hearing your voices, listening to your views, and hosting the UK's biggest election conversation from our very special 5 Live Canvas van.
Election 2017.
5 Live's Marginal Mystery Tour
on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Tonight on 5 Live, we're